Hello and welcome to The Point. I'm Marcel Wieder. On this edition, the PanAm Flame is working its way to Toronto to light the cauldron and kick off the 2015 Pan American Games. Minister of Tourism, Sports and Culture Michael Coteau joins us to talk about the upcoming games and his responsibility as minister. And there's a saying in politics that sometimes it's more difficult to win a nomination than win an election. We're joined by Liberal hopeful Marco Mendocino, who will be going head-to-head against Eve Adams for the Liberal nomination in the riding of Eglinton Lawrence. All that and more on this edition of The Point. Ontario is proud to host the PanAm Games. While Canada's athletes are getting ready to go for the gold on home soil, the province is readying itself for the international stage. The express train from Pearson to Union Station is up and running, and the venues across the province are waiting for spectators to fill the seats. Minister Michael Coteau is responsible for overseeing the games as well as handling the tourism and culture files for the Ontario government. Minister of Tourism, Sports and Culture, Michael Coteau, joins us for more. Thank you very much for joining us, Minister.
Thanks for having me here today.
Shortly, we'll be joined by thousands of visitors to Toronto for the PanAm Games. What do the Games mean for Ontario and for Toronto?
You know, I've been in this position for about a year now, and it's been a remarkable experience. I've got to meet many Canadians, you know, from athletes, of course, but volunteers and tourists, different folks from the culture and music sector. I think for Ontarians, these games represent the ability for us to come together and support our athletes, but also to be proud of, you know, the fact that we are Ontarians, to be proud of the fact that, you know, our athletes are representing Canada. And we'll have all these different countries from across the Americas, the Caribbean here, and many of the diasporas are represented. So I think it's the ability to bring us together and to celebrate our accomplishments.
Now, I've been told that the Games are the third largest sporting event in the world.
Right.
And there are actually more sports represented at the Games here than there are in the Olympics. What impact is that going to have as legacies after the Games for the province?
You know, it's interesting that you mention that, because when you talk to Canadians and you say that these are the largest multi-sporting event in the history of this country, you know, they're obviously surprised because we've had the Winter Olympics, and when you look at the numbers, we have 10,000 athletes and officials, which is just the largest games ever on this in this country. But if you look at the games as a whole, you know, we've got 16 municipalities that are participating, Toronto and 15 additional ones. We have, you know, all these athletes from across the country coming into the GTA. For Ontarians, this is an incredible moment because you know, these are qualifiers. Many of the sports are qualifiers for the Olympics. Like you said, third largest games after the Summer Olympics and the Asian Games. So we're very proud as Ontarians to be able to host these games.
And the legacy of all these different venues, we have new swimming facilities out in U of T campus in Scarborough. We've got in Hamilton and St. Catharines and other places across the GTHA, new venues. What is that going to mean?
The legacy of these facilities, having organizations like the Canadian Sports Institute Ontario calling the Aquatic Centre home as a facility for their high-performance elite athletes, having Wheelchair Canada, Basketball Canada, you know, at the Aquatic Centre as well. Going out to Caledon, seeing the equestrian park, and knowing that, you know, there's, I think I've been told that there's tens of thousands of horses within a 5-kilometer radius. These are natural places for these types of facilities. And the fact that we've built these facilities in the places where they naturally fit, you know, the former premier, by, you know, saying we've got to include the 60 municipalities to do this, we were able to find the natural places for these types of buildings where the community was already supporting that type of infrastructure or facility, or there was some type of organization that was present to promote that type of sport. The ability to build these places in their natural places rather than building temporary places and ripping them down the next day was the best possible solution, I think, for Ontarians, because now we can build on the legacy of these facilities, which will at the end support our athletes and our sports tourism in Ontario.
Now, places like Calgary, which has hosted the games, the Olympics in the past, built a number of facilities that are being used today, and even Vancouver, and helping create an elite athletic facility. Will we see that sort of situation here in Ontario become the national summer athletic facility?
Well, the velodrome's a perfect example. This is the best sports facility for cycling in the country, if not all of North America. It's the closest one in proximity to, from New York City all the way up all along the East Coast. Our athletes in the past would jump into a plane, go out to California, train. Now they can stay in Ontario and do that. And I've talked to the officials over there. The hotels are booked not only during the games, but throughout the next year because there's so much demand for the facility. I believe the wait list for membership there is, you have to wait about a year now.
Wow.
The space is booked. So you're starting to see like these different sports really flourish in Ontario because of the fact we've built these types of facilities.
Now, I have to ask you, Minister, there's always been questions about the cost.
Right.
I know that the government has tried to contain them, but there are always going to be hiccups and bumps along the road. How are we doing in terms of the overall
so
funding?
we're on budget. The games, of course, the provincial government has put in most of the money, but we do have for the infrastructure, the universities, and different municipalities, and of course the federal government who've contributed. But we're in great shape. In fact, when it comes to our facilities, we're about 50 million plus under budget. So we've gone we've gone well under budget with our facilities. Our facilities are ready for the games, which is always a challenge for any type of international game. So Saad Rafi and TO 2015, they've done an extraordinary job working in relation with Infrastructure Ontario, of course, our ministry folks and others. But we're in great shape. And when you take the Athletes Village, for example, the fact that we've been able to leverage this development to build affordable housing, to build an 80,000 square foot YMCA facility, to really accelerate the development of an entire community by, up to 10 years. Because we've made this strategic investment, I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish over the last few years.
Let me talk about the culture side of things, because we recently had an announcement that the government is now making permanent a fund for musicians.
Yeah, this is probably, along with the PanAm Games, this announcement of a music fund in Ontario, it's been so well received by that sector. The PanAm Games have created a lot of excitement, but the Music Fund has created a lot of excitement as well. And this announcement to invest the $15 million per year into our artists in Ontario was such a wise decision, because and the best example, it's like the example I gave with the velodrome. Our athletes left to go to California to train. Well, I've spoken to so many different artists, like the Canadian tenors. I went to go see them at the Revolution Studios, and they were telling me if it wasn't for this fund, they would have to go to Europe to record. So the fact that they can use this fund, access it, and it can help them in their cost, because these guys, they're not just, it's not like you're just walking in and, and sing. They've got a full symphony behind them, right? So it's a lot of cost associated. This just makes it a bit easier. And if the Canadian tenors have to leave Canada to record, I think there's something wrong with that, and this government has fixed it by bringing in some incentive to keep them at home. These are our artists in Canada, our Ontarian artists, Canadian artists, that are our best ambassadors out there, along with our athletes and other people involved in culture. But we have such great talent in this country, and 80% plus of the recording of English-speaking music is done in Ontario. So we are a leader in this country when it comes to our artists and supporting our artists. And this fund that we've set up is really enables those artists to stay here, to develop the skills necessary when it comes to the recording, marketing, all these different types of things as you're emerging as an artist. We want artists to stay here, record here, and to reside here as they become larger and larger on an international scene.
Now, aside from the music, which attracts a lot of people to come up to Ontario to visit, and we have some of the most beautiful natural scenery in North America, on the tourism front, we've seen that the number of visitors from the United States has not really improved over the last number of years. The federal government in the last budget set aside money specifically for U.S.-Canada tourism promotion. How's Ontario responding?
Well, it's interesting. The federal government cut the USA Attraction funds by, I believe, around 50% over the last few years. So they're starting to catch up and get back to where they were. But Ontario, we've always, through our regional tourism offices, and we have many across the province, broken into different parts. So, Northern Ontario, Southwestern Ontario. So we've been very aggressive in trying to pull people not only from America, but from places like China, India, UK. And Toronto had its record year last year in hotel bookings, the best in the country. So we're doing something really well in Toronto. We still can improve on that. We've also got to make sure that it's not just about Toronto. It's about all the beautiful places in Ontario. But tourism, is a sector that most people don't realize generates $28 billion in revenue for this province a year. And when it comes to employment, 350,000 people are connected to tourism. So we do have our challenges. Canada as a whole has gone from being in the top 10 to about number 17 on the international scale when it comes to destinations. So we do have some challenges as a whole as a country, but I think Ontario is doing extremely well, and we need to continue to build that revenue, those opportunities for businesses, so municipalities and regions can further develop economically. So
we have a lower Canadian dollar according to the U.S. and the other European currencies, and I guess also the Asian currencies. Is that helping bring more tourism into Ontario?
It always helps, right? When our dollar was, it cost the Americans, I think, $1.12 to buy a Canadian dollar. Obviously, you're going to have less people coming in. We're at a place where we're seeing a little bit more movement now with trade and with tourism. So I think it's really going to help us. But the thing that is most important, I believe, as a government, as the minister responsible for tourism, is that we have the right type of festivals, and that's why we have a Celebrate Ontario Fund. We supported 250 plus events, big ones like Luminato and Caravana and Pride, to smaller ones like that are right across the province, little tiny festivals that bring in maybe several thousand people. But we are in a position where we continue to expand with our live music strategy and our music strategy for Ontario, where we're supporting more festivals than ever. Our regional tourism offices are coordinating to pull people in. We have an Aboriginal tourism strategy that we're developing. And in the fall, as we go forward, we're going to revisit the way in which we approach tourism, sport, culture, because they all really feed into tourism at the end of the day. Sport is huge. A driver for tourism. So we're going to look for ways to better coordinate the three. Whoever put this ministry together, tourism, culture, sport, I think had that in mind when they did. And I think there's some real opportunity for Ontarians to add to the economy through tourism.
You're one of the busiest ministers, between all the various festivals, the PanAm Games, the music industry. I don't know where you find time, but we appreciate the fact that you found some today to join us. And I appreciate being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Up next, Marco Mendocino is seeking the federal Liberal nomination for the riding of Eglinton Lawrence. He joins us for more.